Yeah. They ain't gonna like you. They ain't gonna like me. I been getting to the money. Everybody mad. I think I'm getting too much money. Everybody mad. The same old nigga from the block. The same old nigga with the pot. The same old nigga from the trap. Everybody hated on him, then he bounced right back. I done spent a whole lot of time overseas. Doubling my money cause you know I want cheese. I been in my hometown playing with the keys when it fell off the boat. Yeah, I'm talking about Belize. I know it's a whole lot of niggas that was hating. I know it's a whole lot of bitches that was taken. So I shut the niggas up, bitches feeling us. Always knew that I was sick, so I had to stay patient. Taking over summer, nigga, tell me what's the bid. Hurt you still cuffing, nigga, tell me what it is. You ain't paying no bills, buying no bags, buying no heels. Goddamn, let a bitch live. All I see is 20s, 50s, 100s. If it ain't quarter mil, fuck the whip. I don't want it, about to make this nigga sick to the stomach. I been getting to the money. Everybody mad. I think I'm getting too much money. Everybody mad. The same old nigga from the block. The same old nigga with the pot. The same old nigga from the trap. Everybody hated on him, then he bounced right back. She was acting stingy, now she wanna give it up. Fast life OT, I'ma live it up. Now my ex-girl tryna make me jealous cause she got a new nigga. She don't know that I don't give a fuck. I got me a deal, but I'm still in the street. Heard a couple niggas talking like they got beat. They forgot sesame, teriyaki sauce with the rice on the side. Sweaty pussy nigga sweet. I got all this money on my motherfucking mind. Diamonds in my dial, I can't even see the time. All my niggas pull up, please don't let me bang the line. And they super extra when them niggas off the line. All I know is Bloods, Crips, Power Rules. I'm a west side nigga, don't get it fucked up. Niggas sick cause they thought I locked up. I been getting to the money. Everybody mad. I think I'm getting too much money. Everybody mad. Same old nigga from the block. The same old nigga with the pot. The same old nigga from the trap.
What up, everybody? How y'all doing? How y'all doing? How are y'all doing? Hopefully everybody's doing great. Just coming off Larry Live. Man, some paperwork just dropped. And it looks like Bonjean didn't want to just, put out her sentencing memorandum, and then the government respond, and they just kind of go away. No, she said, we got another response to what the judge got to say. So we are about to see what they're talking about. We're going to check it out. Let me see who up in here rocking with me. What's up, Sonya Davis? How are you? Mom Life Love, what's good? Wifey, what's good? How are you? Karen's Way, hello. Chocolate 82467 in the house, what's good? Mom Life Love, what's up, sis? How are you? That Nurse 1980, what's good? Let me see who else up in here. Miss Kentucky in the building. Long time no see. Thanks for coming over. Riri, what up, Riri? I ain't seen you in a while. Thank you. Nexie Mendoza, thank you for coming over. I appreciate you. Thank you. Nettie Boo, what up, Nettie Boo? How are you? Okay, y'all. So we are going to get straight into this paperwork. As y'all know, we like to give it to y'all in black and white and let you do whatever you decide to do with it. But we just want to give you the facts, let you see what's going on. No chaser, just as raw as it gets, okay? What's up, Top Notch? What's up, LD? How are you? Okay, so you're at work listening? Okay, that's what's up. We're going to try to help your day go by a little bit quicker, okay? So let's get into this paperwork, y'all. Let me pull it up over here. Let's get to it. Matter of fact, I'm going to have to take this down first. So let me take you down. Okay, there we go. And let me enlarge this paperwork so y'all can see it good. There we go. Okay, so as y'all can see here, let me make sure. So this right here is the paperwork, y'all. Just got dropped. Let me minimize this so y'all can see. So y'all can see it came out tonight. And we are going to just kind of see exactly what is going on here. What exactly does Bonjean have to say? What is R. Kelly's response? Okay. So this right here is United States District Court, Northern District of Illinois, Eastern District. Let me bring this in so y'all can see it clear. There we go. All right, y'all. So defendant Kelly's reply to the government sentencing memorandum. As y'all know, the government is asking for, well, first of all, Bonjean came out and said that she thinks R. Kelly should get between 11 to 14 years. Well, the government came back and said, we think 25 years makes sense. Matter of fact, not only just 25 years on top of the 30 years he already got, let's go ahead and make that consecutive so that after he do his 30, he do his 25, and then he can get out whenever he's, I don't know, 100 and, what is that, 50? He already 56. So 56 plus 55, what's that, 111. So when he get out at 111, he'll have supervision, and it's already a life sentence, y'all. But we're going to see what they got to say, okay? Here we go. So it says the government seeks to inflame. Wow. Ooh, dang. This is how they're going to start off. It says the government seeks to inflame the passions of the public and the court, declaring Kelly a serial sexual predator who refuses to accept responsibility for his crimes. Well, it's the truth. He hasn't accepted responsibility for his crimes, right? I'm just saying. It had surgery in December. Have been traveled back and forth. I'm glad I hope you're doing better. I hope you're doing better, Miss Kentucky. I pray your surgery went well. So she's starting this thing off very feisty, right? It says by submitting a sentencing memorandum that dares to challenge the government's narrative in any way, the government accuses Kelly of victim blaming, lack of remorse, and failing to grasp the gravity of his criminal conduct. It is the government that fails to grasp that Kelly still enjoys a few constitutional and statutory protections that allow him to challenge the government's take on the evidence and advocate for an appropriate sentence without being labeled a monster who has no remorse. Okay. It says the jury that heard the case seemed to respect those basic principles of our criminal justice process. The prosecutors would be wise to take a lesson from the jury. In reality, no one grasps the seriousness of the crimes for which Kelly was convicted more than Kelly. He is, after all, the one who, is likely to spend the rest of his life in prison for maximum emotional impact. The government devotes 5 pages of its sentencing memorandum to giving another play-by-play of the contents of the videos that Kelly has been convicted of producing, even though Kelly has argued nothing in connection with the content of those videos. Even though Kelly has argued nothing in connection with the content of those videos. Let me continue reading to make sure that I don't think she's going where I think she's trying to go. It will probably force everyone to watch them again at the sentencing hearing, notwithstanding its feigned concern with the harm repeating viewing cause Jane. There is no need. This court, the jury, and the parties watched and heard unnecessarily long excerpts of the videos at the government's insistence. The evidence speaks for itself, and Kelly has expressly acknowledged the seriousness of those offenses in his sentencing memorandum. Second, the government simply ignores a jury's verdict in this case, insisting on telling a narrative that their own witnesses did not tell, arguing inter alia that Kelly is still guilty of obstruction of justice and abusing Brittany and countless unknown and unidentified girls. Apparently, the government is not satisfied with only getting 3 victims to fight for and must rely on evidence that a jury explicitly rejected to support its absurd request for a second life sentence for Kelly that will violate ex post facto and Apprendi principles in any event. More on that later. Okay. That Kelly is not willing to accept responsibility for offenses for which he was acquitted and views the evidence presented at trial somewhat differently than the government does not mean that he fails to grasp the seriousness of the offenses. Kelly has every right to advocate for himself and argue for a fair sentence that acknowledges the seriousness of offenses while also pushing back on the government's embellished narrative that relies significantly on acquitting conduct. A blind reading of the government sentencing memorandum would lead the reader to believe that Kelly was convicted of every count in the government's indictment, including, man, she landed on thick, y'all. She landed on thick. Let's read this footnote here. It says the government does not mention Tracy in its sentencing memorandum, but that is probably because Tracy has now accused the government of misconduct. According to recently produced discovery, Tracy claims that she told the agents and prosecutors prior to trial that Lisa Van Allen was extorting her and other victims, information that was never disclosed to the defense in violation of Brady and its progeny. Notably, the government had no qualms about vouching for Tracy's credibility when it was seeking to convict Kelly of a bogus inducement count, but now that Tracy has turned on the government, accusing the agents and others of wrongdoing, it seems to have abandoned any claims that she was a bona fide victim. Wow. That's new. Did y'all know that? Did y'all already know that? I didn't know that. It's my first time seeing that. So it says here, Kelly was convicted of every count in the government's indictment, including obstruction of justice, a myriad of child pornography trafficking offenses, and numerous inducement counts. He wasn't. The right to a jury trial is rather pointless if the defendant is going to be punished for offenses that a jury acquitted him of. The government also tramples Kelly's Fifth Amendment rights, asking this court to punish Kelly for not taking responsibility, not for nothing. The government knows full well that there never would have been a trial in this case if it did not insist that Kelly plead that counts of the indictment it lost anyway. The government was far more concerned with its press coverage than a reasonable disposition in this case that would have allowed Kelly to take responsibility and spare certain victims the need to take the stand. Kelly only raises this argument to counter the government's unfair claim that Kelly has demonstrated unwillingness to act responsibly. That aside, Kelly can hardly take responsibility or show remorse in a matter that the government demands when it continues to indict him. Kelly currently has pending charges in Minnesota and an appeal in the Eastern District of New York, to mention nothing of various civil lawsuits. Kelly enjoys the Fifth Amendment right to remain silent and, on the advice of counsel, asserts his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. The government is walking a constitutionally thin line when it urges increased punishment for Kelly because he allegedly shows no regret or fails to grasp the gravity of his criminal conduct against children. Hold on. Let me make sure I just read what I think I just read. Okay. So Bonjean just said, the government is walking a constitutionally thin line when it urges increased punishment for Kelly because he allegedly shows no remorse or fails to grasp the gravity of his criminal conduct against children. You seem to have a problem with him not showing remorse for his criminal conduct against children. I'm confused. Wow. The government is not in Kelly's head and cannot say what he feels or thinks. It should refrain from using his Fifth Amendment privilege against him. When federal and state prosecuting agencies stop indicting him, he might be in a position to speak more freely. What? Hold on. Can I find it? Can I find it? Can I find it? Please tell me I can find it. Cry me a freaking river. First of all, you just said the government is not in Kelly's head and cannot say what he feels or thinks, and that it should refrain from using his Fifth Amendment privilege against him, and says when federal and state prosecuting agencies stop indicting him, Kelly might be in a position to speak more freely about his regrets. But first of all, he's been speaking a whole lot. He's been speaking a whole lot on Storm Monroe. What's the other lady? Natasha over on Instagram. He's been speaking with Levi. He's been speaking with a lot of people. So I'm confused. As if you don't know that he's already talking. He's been saying a whole lot lately. Let's move on. He might be in a position to speak more freely about his regrets, but with pending criminal charges and the explosion of statutes across the country that extend and even abolish civil and criminal statutes of limitations for sex offenses, it is hard to know when that will be. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. There you go, grown man. Grown man said he should have spoke at trial. It is clear that if Kelly makes any argument that does not embrace the government's narrative, a narrative that ignores critical aspects of the trial evidence, Kelly will be accused of victim blaming. Kelly, through his counsel, has every right to remind the court of the actual evidence that was presented at trial and does not conform to the government's depiction of him as a prolific sex trafficker of young kids. Kelly repeatedly acknowledged in his sentencing memorandum that he has been convicted of serious crimes. But it is also true that his relationships with Jane and Pauline were not quite as the government suggests. Guidelines calculation. The inducement counts carry an offense level of 15. The government argues that Kelly's convictions of the inducement counts necessarily qualify for cross-reference at Section 282A31. Because Kelly has convictions of inducement, enticement, and coercion of Jane, Nia, and Pauline, not so. The government overlooks that the jury was instructed that it could find Kelly guilty of the inducement counts if Kelly persuaded, induced, enticed, or coerced. Exhibit E to Kelly's sentencing memorandum, page 38. In fact, the jury sent out a specific question inquiring whether it had to find Kelly persuaded, induced, enticed, and coerced, or whether the instruction could be read in the disjunctive, notwithstanding that the charge he led in on the conjunctive. Over the defense counsel's objection, the government insisted that the instruction was properly given in the disjunctive and the court agreed. As such, the government is precluding that from now, arguing that the jury found Kelly guilty of coercing Jane, Nia, and Pauline, when the jury could simply agreed that Kelly persuaded Jane, Nia, and Pauline to engage in prohibited sexual conduct. In fact, the jury's question strongly implies that it did not find that Kelly used coercion, but rather had persuaded, enticed, or induced Jane, Nia, and Pauline, which satisfied the elements of the statute. Thus, Kelly's mere conviction for the offense of 18 U.S.C. and 2242 does not trigger the cross-reference at 2A3.1 as the government contends. B. Fear factor. What's going on? Together we break chains. Miss Opinionated, Miss April Showers, how are you? Thank y'all for coming in. B. The fear factor. It says the government concedes that there is no evidence that Kelly threatened or used force in connection with Jane, Nia, and Pauline, but nevertheless claims that he used fear to induce the prohibited sexual activity and that the concept of fear should be defined broadly. To find that Kelly used fear on the trial evidence would involve more than a broad reading of the word fear. It would involve redefining the word fear and reading the requirement out of the sentencing statute altogether. The court need only, and you know what? When he told, and Larry just got finished talking about it, when he told that girl, you know what? I think it was Pauline, when she walked into the room and saw him looking at Jane's body naked and talking about he was looking for bruises, and then he said to her, "Hey, if you talk about what we talked about here, your parents gonna find out when you kiss that boy, and you don't want them to know that, right? They ain't supposed to know that, right? Okay, let's be cool then. Let's be cool. That is fear. That is invoking fear that he's going to tell on them if they don't do what he wants to do. That is not only fear, but it's also persuading them that if you don't do it, then I'm going to tell them. That's also coercing them to do something. And it's also, well, we could go on and on and on about this. Okay? However, let's continue. Let's just talk about fear. Okay? The court only looked at the Seventh Circuit authority to resolve this contested issue. The Seventh Circuit has defined fear as encompassing a threat or other fear-inducing coercion to overcome the victim's will. Let me think about this for a minute. Wouldn't it be fear if you're encompassing a threat of telling a 14-year-old's mom and dad, did they kiss the boy? And the other fear-inducing coercion, like you're saying, if you don't do this, I'm going to do this, which means you're coercing her to involve herself in a threesome with Jane and kiss her and he rub on her breast. And this is coercion to overcome the victim's will. She was not willing to do the things that you wanted to do with her, so you threatened her with the information of you knowing she kissed a boy and you telling her parents, and her not wanting to. You struck fear in her with that threat, which persuaded and coerced her to do exactly what you wanted her to do when it came to these threesomes. Just saying. Here we go. The government relies on United States versus Hensel 688 F3D to support its argument that fear doesn't really mean fear. Hensel does not stand for such a proposition. Rather, Hensel supports Kelly's argument that the government's evidence of fear was woefully lacking. In Hensel, a 12-year-old girl called the police to report that she had been sexually assaulted by the defendant in a hotel room. Upon questioning by the police, the defendant conceded that he met the girl online and arranged to meet her at a local hotel after claiming to be 14 years old. When the victim finally met the defendant, she realized that he was much older than 14 years of age, and that situation was scary. Because she was frightened, she complied to the defendant and went to the hotel room, where he slapped her buttocks and caused her to feel very uncomfortable. When the defendant began physically touch her, she was really scared. And when she began to remove her clothes, she told him she was uncomfortable and crossed her legs to stop the defendant from removing her pants. The victim told the defendant she did not want to have sex, and the girl whimpered as he pressed on against her will. The victim ran out of the room and immediately called her mother and the police. Whoa. In Hensel, the Seventh Circuit found that the concept of fear is distinct from force. At 977, it further found the cross-reference was appropriate when the distinct court concluded that the defendant coerced the girl's participation in the prohibited sexual conduct. Despite her efforts to move away from him, her crossed legs and resistance to undress her, her crying, and her 10 or more protests that she did not want to participate, the victim testified that she was scared, and that is why she complied with his demands. This case is entirely inapt. Jane, Pauline, and Nia never testified of being scared to engage in the prohibited sexual contact with Kelly. Importantly, none of them testified that Kelly did anything to overcome their will. Of course, this is not a defense to the underlying inducement count, and is certainly not tantamount to victim blaming. But there is no question that using coercion, threats, and fear to induce prohibited sexual activity is not the same as persuading or enticing a teenager into a prohibited conduct. The government refuses to acknowledge this distinction. She is just trying to confuse people with words, and this word and that word and this word and that word. And the point is, he threatened her to do something that was against her will. If it wasn't for the threat that you made to her, Mr. R. Kelly, about threatening to tell her parents about the boy while she was 14. Because if you think about it, you say, Bonjean, that there wasn't an instance in which she was in a position where her legs were crossed. But when she ran out of the situation and you had Jane go follow her and bring her back, I'm sure that Jane went and got her based on your command. Yeah, I don't know, y'all. They think we slow over here. We are not slow over here. I'm going to tell you that. Okay? Let's move on. Absurdly, the government attempts to antagonize this case to the Fifth Circuit case, United States versus Lucas, 157. It says, for the proposition that fear can include a scenario where the defendant would react badly if she, the victim, did not meet his demands, or may emanate from the defendant's control over the victim's everyday life. In Lucas, the defendant was the warden of a jail in Eunice, Mississippi, who repeatedly raped an inmate. Wow. There, the defendant pled guilty and admitted that he coerced the female inmate to engage in sexual intercourse and other sexual acts, and that the sexual acts were unwanted. There, the court found the warden used actual force to rape the inmate, not merely his powers as a warden. Critically, the Fifth Circuit observed that fear was interpreted broadly, but the element is satisfied when the defendant's actions implicitly placed the victim in fear of some bodily harm. Lucas only proves Kelly's argument. Kelly's tactics, as determined by a jury, may have satisfied the elements of persuasion or inducement, but they fall far short of demonstrating that he placed the victim in fear of some bodily harm or other type of harm. Well, the harm was that Pauline knew if you told her parents about the 14-year-old that it would cause harm to her. It was the fear of her getting in trouble from what you tell her parents that definitely cradles into the little bucket of instilling fear in her. That's just how I see it. Similarly, United States versus Castillo does not help the government's argument. There, the defendant was convicted of sexually abusing his 2 minor children. On appeal, the defendant challenged the fear element. Again, the court held the element is satisfied when the defendant's action implicitly placed the victim in fear of some bodily harm. The court found that fear could be inferred in this case because the nature of the circumstances that a male parent attempting to perform sexual acts with his children, would place them in fear of bodily harm, which the victims had witnessed the defendant physically abuse their mother on many occasions and had physically abused his children. Oh my gosh. Wow. The same cannot be said here. Jane, Pauline, and Nia did not fear any bodily harm when he engaged in prohibited sexual conduct with Kelly when they were underage. There is simply no analogous case anywhere that supports the government's definition of fear. If this court were to embrace the government's definition of fear, it would simply be reading fear out of the section. The government is free to argue that Kelly used all types of inappropriate tactics to engage the minors into prohibited sexual activities, but fear is simply not among them. She's really trying to get rid of that fear. She's really trying to get rid of that fear word, I can see. In sum, the inducement counts each carry an offense level of 15. Kelly did not use threats or force to induce Jane, Pauline, and Nia into prohibited. What? You said Kelly did not use threats? What do you call telling Pauline that I'm going to tell your parents about a 14-year-old boy? You don't want them to find out about that, do you? That is a threat. It says that he did not threaten Jane, Pauline, and Nia into prohibited sex conduct, nor did he cause them to fear bodily harm or any type of harm to induce the prohibited sexual conduct. Simply put, the tactics that the government claims Kelly used were very different. The government claims Kelly groomed the minors. He showered them with affection. He bought them presents. He promised them various things and wowed them with his superstar power. That's what he did. That's exactly what he did. Bonjean says none of these facts let Kelly off the hook for his conduct, which is why he stands convicted of 3 counts of inducement. Okay? But the government cannot now claim that he also used fear of bodily harm with the victims when the victims made no such claim. Just because the victims didn't make a claim on it there didn't mean that he never... Oh, good grief. The government advanced no such theory, even in the alternative, and the record suggests that the jury rejected any notion that the sexual abuse was committed through an act of coercion, applying an appropriate offense level. Here's another footnote, y'all. Here's another footnote. The government desperately grasps to its inflated offense level of the inducement counts for Jane and Pauline, not Nia, arguing that Kelly transported Jane and Nia for the purpose of producing child pornography. At the outset, the government cannot use the child pornography counts as to Jane to increase the offense level for the inducement count. That would result in impermissible multiple punishments. However, Jane did not testify that Kelly transported her anywhere for the purpose of creating child pornography. Although Jane claimed that she saw recorded equipment in Kelly's home, she never saw any explicit videos of herself. Neither the government nor the court can simply assume, based on the presence of recorded equipment, that Kelly recorded sexual activity with Pauline. Was there another cameraman there? I'm just saying. The mere presence of a recording, okay. The explicit conduct with Pauline anywhere. Moreover, Pauline had a relationship with Kelly long after she was a minor. Oh my gosh. She went back to that. She went back to justifying that these minors had adult relationships with the pedophile. Pauline, who had a relationship with Kelly long after she was a minor. It just feels weird reading that. Did not even indicate when she saw this recording equipment. There is simply no evidence that such videos were produced or that Kelly transported Pauline to any location for the purpose of creating child pornography. This argument is a stretch and is appropriately regulated to a footnote. Inducement counts is not going easy on Kelly. It is applying the law appropriately and fairly to Kelly. Sentencing factors. The government argues that Kelly's desire to sexually abuse children is insatiable. It repeatedly advanced a false claim that Kelly has been abusing countless underage girls for decades. Unfortunately for the government, their evidence comes up short on this bold allegation. Indeed, the government continues to exaggerate the evidence against Kelly, apparently not satisfied by the jury's verdict or harms caused to Jane, Pauline, and Nia. This court is obligated to consider the charged conduct and relevant conduct to the extent allowable, not the government's sweeping claims that are more appropriate for a Lifetime docuseries than court of law. The government is correct that Kelly was convicted of having an illegal sexual relationship with Jane and Pauline, which started when they were 14. Are Kelly supporters? Listen very closely. This is what you will learn when you read. Jennifer Bonjean. Jennifer Bonjean, R. Kelly's lawyer, is saying right here, y'all remember this. Jennifer Bonjean said the government is correct that Kelly was convicted of having an illegal sexual relationship with Jane and Pauline that started when they were 14. He was convicted of creating child pornography when he, not a handler, not a videographer, not a production crew, when he video recorded his sexual act with Jane. Kelly was also convicted of fondling 15 to 16-year-old Nia in a single occasion in Chicago. So she alleged that Kelly touched her and masturbated on a single occasion in Minnesota. This conduct is serious though, but the government insists on exaggerating Kelly's misdeeds, sounding more like a teaser on the next installation of Surviving R. Kelly than lawyers. The government declares Kelly a prolific sexual abuser of children, but resorts to manufacturing evidence. What? They didn't manufacture anything. It was right there for them. But resorts to manufacturing evidence related to Aaliyah. Oh boy, here we go. Aaliyah that has never been proven as support for this claim. Kelly is convicted of serious crimes as it is, yet the government is so committed to obtaining another life sentence for him that it resorts to invoking unsubstantiated Aaliyah claims, perpetuated reports from tabloid docuseries, and attributing hyperbolic labels to Kelly rather than relying on the actual evidence to support its ask. Ooh, wee. The government spends a significant portion of its sentencing memorandum arguing that the distribution and trafficking of child pornography causes significant harm to a victim and society at large, because their mere production of the pornography, Kelly agrees, as the government pointed out, the victimization of the children involved does not end with the photographer's camera is put away. which is precisely why Kelly and others continue to wait for the government to indict those individuals responsible for stealing and distributing the video of Jane, including Jane's aunt, Stephanie Edwards Sparkle, who stole the videotape and gave at least one copy to the Sun-Times reporter Jim DeRogatis, who then shared and transported the video to other people and places, and extortionists like Chuck Freeman and Lisa Van Allen. They want them to lock them up. Of course, but then again, if there was never a child pornography video created by R. Kelly, they wouldn't have nothing to have stolen. Now, would they? Right. Okay, here we go. Of course, there is no disputing that if the video was ever created, that it would not have entered the public sphere. But Kelly has already been convicted and will be punished for the creation of the video. That's because he created the video. Yeah. That's why he created it. The government has no choice but to concede that Kelly had no role in playing the images into the public domain, which of course does not relieve him of reliability for creating it. Thank you for agreeing with me, Bonjean. I appreciate that. But it also does not mean that his sentence should be enhanced for distributing it. Like I said. So they're saying ignore the guy who had sex with the babies, with the kids, and recorded it. Go after the people who took it from him and put it out here in the public. They're the ones you should go arrest. He's already been punished for his, but go after them. Right. But it also does not mean that the sentence should be enhanced for distributing. Indeed, it was the government's star witness who were responsible for that. Rather than prosecute those people for that specific harm caused to Jane, the government doled onto immunity agreements and even falsely indicted Kelly for abusing Lisa Van Allen, who consistently lied about everything. Wow. Here's another footnote. DeRogatis runs his mouth plenty on news shows, social media, and in his recently published book. But when called to testify and answer questions under oath about what he did with the video when he received it from Stephanie Edwards, he prefers to invoke his Fifth and First Amendment privileges. He is a big believer in constitutional rights for himself. The government was forced to acknowledge that Van Allen lied about her age when she had consensual sexual relationship with Kelly and voluntarily dismissed that count on the indictment. That Van Allen lied about something so significant as her age did not dissuade the government from making her a star witness in this case. Ooh, let me go grab my water. Hold on, y'all. Okay. I'm back. Here we go. So, from her age to the number of videos she stole to the content of those videos, by her own admission, they're talking about Lisa Van Allen. She admittedly robbed Kelly and engaged in a decades-long scheme to extort Kelly and others. The government's point is well taken that Jane continues to suffer harm by each viewing of the images. But Kelly, he's not 100% responsible for that harm. What? Hold on. Bonjean just said, the government's point is well taken that Jane continues to suffer harm by each viewing of the images. But then she said that Kelly is not 100% responsible for that harm. Who created the video? R. Kelly did. Who was the adult in this situation? It was R. Kelly, yeah. But you're saying that he is not 100% responsible for that harm. So if the government seeks to vindicate that wrong, it should indict those who trafficked the video. Okay? A guideline sentence life based on acquitted conduct and guidelines amendments that post date the charged offense is unjustified and would run afoul. Sorry, y'all. Afoul of Apprendi versus New Jersey. The government seeks an above guideline sentence on two grounds. Number one, Kelly obstructed justice. And number two, if he was indicted today, his guideline sentence would be higher. He wasn't convicted of obstructing justice. Those grounds are not appropriate grounds for an above guidelines range sentence. Even probation recognized as much in finding no basis for an upward variance. Obstruction does not justify an above guidelines a sentence where Kelly did not obstruct justice in an instant event and was acquitted of obstructing in the 2002 state. Yeah, I just said that. Okay. Using a 2-level enhancement for obstruction of justice is not a basis for a variance above the guidelines range for several reasons. First and foremost, in 1997, federal sentencing guidelines only permits an enhancement of obstruction of the instant offense. The government does not argue otherwise because it does not, and cannot show that Kelly attempted in any way to obstruct this prosecution. Recognizing that no such enhancement is applicable here, the government attempts to end-run the ex post facto clause, arguing that this court can still consider Kelly's obstruction as a sentencing factor and basis for sentencing him to the above guideline sentence. Relying in an inappropriate 2006 guidelines which employed language that deemed to expand the obstruction enhancement for obstructive conduct related to, here's another footnote, according to a recent disclosure by the government, Tracy claims that Lisa Van Allen even extorted her. Okay. A defendant's offense of conviction. Hey, y'all, if y'all could hit the like button for your bro, I would appreciate it. I got 2 dislikes and I got 25 likes. We got about 75 people in here. If y'all could get us to at least 50 likes, that would be pretty cool. We putting in the work. It's 202, 212. We putting in this work for y'all, man. I'd appreciate a like. Thank you. Here we go. The government continues to ignore that Kelly was acquitted of obstructing justice in connection with any offense of conviction. No authority allows the court to consider an offense for which Kelly was acquitted as a basis of sentencing him to the above guidelines. Using acquitted conduct to justify an upward variance not only raises ex post facto concerns, it presents an additional constitutional problem under Apprendi versus New Jersey. The guidelines range suggested by the government is well above the statutory minimum of the top count of the indictment. Indeed, the government seeks 25-year sentence, which exceeds the 20-year statutory maximum for production of child pornography. The United States Supreme Court has held that facts other than prior convictions, the United States Supreme Court has held that facts other than prior convictions must be proved to a jury beyond reasonable doubt because they can be used to increase punishment for a crime beyond the prescribed statutory maximum. It says if Kelly's alleged obstruction conduct is to be used as a basis for upwardly departing from the sentencing guidelines to a range that exceeds the statutory maximum for production of child pornography, those facts need to have been proven to a jury beyond a reasonable doubt. In this case, the jury did consider those facts and rejected them. Since an upward variance based on the obstruction would result in a sentence that exceeds the statutory maximum of the top count, Apprendi prohibits a variance based on this acquitted conduct and any other obstruction conduct that the government claims Kelly committed. B. Relevance on subsequent amendments to the guidelines to justify an upward variance of 5 to 7 levels runs afoul of the ex post facto clause. The government urges an outrageous life guidelines range based not only on acquitting conduct, but based on amendments to the sentencing guidelines that post-date Kelly's conduct. The government again ignores the court's limitations under the ex post facto clause. It is true that the Seventh Circuit has held that the court may interrupt the commission's later addition of the aggravated element as a sentencing factor as evidence that the previous version of the guidelines did not adequately consider the factor in the sentencing scheme and may also consider later amendments for determining how much of a departure is warranted for the aggravated conduct in question. However, in this case, the government does not identify any aggravating element that is omitted as a sentencing factor in the applicable 1997 guidelines. Instead, it simply points out that the offenses for which Kelly was convicted now carry a higher base offense level than they did in 1997. But differently, production of child pornography is punished more severely now than it was in 1997, raising the guidelines range based on the amendment. That is a textbook ex post facto violation because a court is prohibited from sentencing the defendant under an amendment to the guidelines that makes the punishment more severe than it had been at the time the criminal activity took place. Okay, so it's not what she's trying to do is say that he should be sentenced under the guidelines that were before 1997, in which they're saying that that Kelly was convicted now carry a higher base level than they did in 1997. So I guess they're trying to say that he committed these crimes before the levels were raised. And so that's what she wants him to be, so let's see. It says, as a point of comparison, this case does not involve the scenario where a subsequent amendment concluded an enhancement for a specific aggravating factor that increased the offense level that a sentencing court may naturally have considered the aggravating evidence in the sentencing factors before it was confided. In that scenario, the court may consider an amendment to upwardly depart from the guidelines range. Indeed, the Seventh Circuit observed that since a court's decision to depart must be linked to the rationale and methodology of the guidelines, it may prove useful to identify an aggravating element modified in later amendments as support for relying on the sentencing factor is increased in increasing the range. That is, in no way condones upward variances based on amendments that simply punish the charged offense more severely. In clear violation of the ex post facto doctrine, the government brazenly asked the court to apply current offense levels and subject Kelly to greater punishment than he would have faced if he had been prosecuted in 1997. Because the government started caring about young black women. Oh, here we freaking go. Here we go. Here we go. Using acquitted conduct. Okay. Using acquitted conduct and mere fact that production of child pornography is more seriously punished today than it was in 1997 is no grounds for a variance. Such an upward departure would violate Kelly's constitutional rights to due process, trial by jury, per Apprendi and ex post facto law. So she's trying to say, if we read this right, in clear violation of the ex post facto doctrine, the government brazenly asked this court to apply current offense levels and subject Kelly to greater punishment than he would have faced if he had been prosecuted in 1997 before the government started caring about young black women. Wow. Damn. So she trying to say the government didn't care nothing about young black women before 1997. And she's trying to say that since he committed these crimes before 1997, you should charge him under the same guidelines in which we recognize that the government didn't give a damn about young black women. Here we go. Using acquitted conduct. I think I read it already. The government offers no compelling basis for running this sentence consecutive. The government acknowledges that this court has a discretion to run this sentence concurrent to his Eastern District sentence, but urges a consecutive sentence because, number one, Kelly lacks remorse, and number two, there are different victims involved in this case. The government's argument in favor of a consecutive sentence falls flat. First of all, there is no authority for the proposition that Kelly should face increased punishment because he defends himself in his sentencing hearing. Kelly has repeatedly acknowledged the seriousness of the offenses for which he stands convicted. That the government seeks not one, but two life sentences for Kelly, while similarly situated people avoid government scrutiny, are widely celebrated, and even hold elected positions in Congress. Oh, she going there. Doesn't that seem a little unfair? Kelly has merely pointed out the disproportionate treatment as grounds for arguing that one life sentence is enough, not to minimize the conduct for which he has been convicted. That the government asked the court to run this sentence consecutive because he dares to point out that his treatment by the criminal justice system has been excessive and disproportionate is not the same as blaming the victims, and does not mean he is not rehabilitated. Okay. Moreover, Kelly's silence as to the question of whether he is remorseful about conduct for which he has been convicted is not evidence of lack of rehabilitation. It's evidence that he represented by counsel who has advised him to remain silent in the face of pending criminal indictments. He's not following that too well. I'm just saying. It is a blatant violation of Kelly's Fifth Amendment rights to ask for increased punishment on the grounds of lack of rehabilitation because he has not accepted responsibility for this conduct when the government knows full well that Kelly is still under indictment in other jurisdictions. Moreover, that the government is unknowingly advanced Moreover, the government is knowingly advancing a lie. The government knows very well that Kelly was willing to accept responsibility for certain conduct, but it was... Hold on. The government knows very well that Kelly was willing to accept responsibility for certain conduct. Does that mean that he was about to take a plea deal? But it was the government that pushed his case to trial, insisting on guilty pleas to the offenses that resulted in acquittals anyway, and for refusing to show its hand at the sentencing request or take an above guideline sentence off the table. The government wanted its trial, and now it wants another life sentence for Kelly. It does not apparently want to prosecute the other wrongdoers in this case, or the countless other celebrities who have committed similar conduct. Contrary to the government's argument, the conduct charged in New York covered by the court covered the conduct charged here. It is true that Jane, Pauline, and Nia did not testify in New York, but they certainly could have. And nobody stopped the government from charging these three offenses on the indictment. The government essentially concedes that it pulled out a handful of minors, to bring in an instant indictment for no reason. The government does not even attempt to argue that the charges brought in this instant indictment could have been brought in the EDNY case. The government now claims that a 300-month consecutive sentence is appropriate for a count. Specific harm for these three minors. In making that argument, the government concedes that it engaged in a piecemeal prosecution to enhance Kelly's sentence. The government fails to explain why substantial incremental punishment is justified here when Kelly is likely to die in prison anyway. The sentencing factors instruct this court to consider a number of factors, but that each victim get allotted a certain number of years is not among them. A concurrent sentence is what fairness demands. In the quest to ensure that Kelly never sees the light of day, the government fails to give any consideration to the significant mitigation he was presented. The government asked that the court to ignore its responsibility to consider the individual characteristics of the defendant and join its bloodthirsty campaign to make Kelly a symbol of the Me Too movement rather than treat him as a human being who should be appropriately punished, no greater or less than anyone else. Similarly situated. Conclusion. For the foregoing reasons, the applicable guidelines range of 135 to 168 imprisonment. No upward variance is justified, and numerous factors justify a sentence at the lower end of the guidelines. Moreover, fairness commands that the sentence run concurrent to the ED&Y sentence, which is statistically speaking a life sentence. Respectfully submitted, Jennifer Bonjean. Wow. There y'all go. Another crazy motion by Bonjean. Another crazy motion by Jennifer Bonjean. It's going to be very interesting. To see what Lennon Weber has to say about this here. As y'all know, he will be getting sentenced in 3 days? Today's the 20th. He's gonna be getting sentenced on the 23rd, so Thursday. So we'll see what happens. But y'all, listen, I appreciate y'all coming over here and listening to the information. If y'all will please, on the way out, hit the like button, just so that we can get this information out to more people, especially with the trial or the sentencing right around the corner. I want to get this out to people so they can actually see what's going on. The only way that this video gets pushed is if y'all hit the like button. So I don't need no money. I ain't asking for no cash app. If you could just hit that like button for free, I would appreciate it. Okay? You can do it on the way out. I love y'all. Thank y'all very much. Get y'all some rest and get up so y'all can go to work tomorrow. Okay? Peace out, y'all.